But I think everybody's through eating. I think we all know why we're here. This is a very pleasant task that was imposed on me. I didn't ask for it. I thought about it for quite a while, and I wondered what you said on an occasion of this kind. And then the more I thought about it, I felt the less you said, the better off it was. Where's Jim Hurley?
Jim Hurley, right here.
Jim, I made a decision. I'm not going to say anything more than necessary to carry on the program. There are going to be quite a few people to speak. And I just caution on one thing, and I think it's best told by maybe a story. And I'm thinking of the story Bishop Shannon told on himself a few years ago about his first sermon. It seems that he was assigned to the cathedral in St. Paul under Father George Ryan. And it came time to make preach his first sermon. And he got up, he spent a good deal of time, and he preached it. And he said all this time he could see Father Ryan walking up and down. Well, a few weeks afterward, he asked Father Ryan how he thought this sermon was. And Father Ryan said, well, your material was really very good. You had it well prepared, it was correlated. He said your diction was fine, your delivery was fine. But he said, I thought you certainly missed 2 or 3 very good opportunities to quit. Now, if you want something with a little more impact, I'm thinking of another story I heard recently, rather apropos at the present time, but this young fellow was very interested in his town ball team, hoping they'd win the pennant. And they were getting up close to it, so he decided he wouldn't shave until the team won the pennant. This much to the disgust and the discomfort and discontent of his wife. But time got on, and the team won the pennant. And he called her up that day, and he told her that he wouldn't be home because he had to work. He went over to a Turkish bath, and he got a nice shower, he got perfumed up, he got a haircut, he got a shave. After it was dark, he went home and quietly crept into the house, up into the bedroom, didn't say a word, just took his wife's hand and ran it down over his face. She stopped for a minute, she says, wonderful. But you better make it snappy, baby, because I expect old Whiskers home pretty quick. So, now, in these days of advanced science, we're hearing a great deal about trying to originate life. You read about it in the papers every day, and one of these days, these chemists are going to put together a combination, I'm sure, that will probably have life. But for as far as we know, people have need sires. We have sires. They seem to be absolutely necessary, and even if they do produce this life, it probably will take a couple of billion years more before they can make a human being out of it, if we have any belief in the process of evolution. But Tom has sired a young man. He's here tonight. He's lived with Tom for quite a long time. And I'd like to have Warren, his son, speak just a word.
Well, this is unexpected, but a delightful opportunity.
Mr. Gill, Richard Gill.
If I can squeeze my remarks in between the Dick Gill commercials. Yeah, I have lived with him for a long time. 35 years before my mother packed my bag and told me to get out of the house and get married. And living with him was a marvelous experience, one that's quite hard to explain, because I experienced a well, a double emotion in living with this man, both on location and since I've struck out on my own at the tender age of 35. Because I've loved him as a father, and that's a unique kind of love that I'm sure most of you know about. But then I've loved him as a man as well. A man that I respect, and admire. Well, he's been a hell of a friend all my life.
Thank you, Warren. You know, by the same physiological token, girls also have sires. And girls inevitably acquire husbands. And Tom sired a daughter who was lovely. She acquired a husband. And between this son and this daughter, son-in-law and daughter-in-law, these people have made a piker out of Tom. They have, what, 12 children.
Oh,
Between them.
7.
7, and Warren's got 5. So,
Yeah, that's right.
so I'd like to call on Mike Early for just a...
There's 2 is unexpected, but Warren is related. I'm related, but I'm associated in both ends of this deal. I've known Tom, actually, being his son-in-law for quite some time, and he was quite an example for me to follow or to watch in this other little end of our deal here. And every time that I could come up with a decent argument for not taking part in this little program that we, some of us here, love so dearly, Tom was an example to me, and in a way that helped me change my life to where I could try to pattern someone after his. We do have a lovely family, and each of the kids think, along with the rest of us, that Tom is quite the guy. Thank you.
We have here, of course, quite a diversity of relationships to Tom. I think we can say this, that we never get along without the benefit of clergy. We have here a priest whom I highly regard, even though compassion is supposedly the possession of all people in the clergy. I think this man has indicated his compassion in a very distinct way. Father Vink was chaplain Calix, and I know he's done a great deal of work in the field of alcoholism, not only with the individuals, but with the relatives of the individuals. I know also that he had a fairly close relation with Tom through the medium of Calix. I'd like to ask Father Vink to say just a word or two.
Do I need this back there?
He made it here.
12 kids are good for the OB men, aren't they? Great things happen on big feast days of the church year. I think of the Feast of Christmas. The North always beats the South. I think of New Year's Day, another great feast day in the Christian church. Michigan State always beats Southern Cal. And another feast day, something great happened, which I think outshines Michigan State's accomplishments in the Rose Bowl, and that was in 1942, August 15, Tom Burke quit drinking. Congratulations, Tom. It's a real honor for me to be here and to remind all these men who might look forward one day to 25 years of sobriety, if this might be their quest, that it certainly can be done with honor and with joy. I can remember one thing that Tom taught me. He and I went to my first AA meeting, where I met Doc up in the 4th or 5th floor, is it? 5th floor. And Tom was expounding on some theory. And after I took him home that night, my first AA meeting, and I thought this was fear and trepidation. Meeting an alcoholic was like another creature. Never heard of it as far as a priest. What do I do? And Tom said quite simply on the way home, he said, Father, whenever you're working with alcoholics, keep it simple. And by that he meant the problem is simple. And this is going back about 6 years now, Tom. But I remember that in the hundreds of people with whom I've had to work with in this program, I've tried to keep that for the most part in my mind. And it's probably applicable not only to the problem of addiction to alcohol, but it's applicable to many problems. The problem is probably not too complicated, Tom would say. Forget about a lot of psychiatry and big words. The answer is, 1, you cannot drink. Number 2, you have an addiction. Number 3, grow up. Quite simple. I never forgot that, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. One hardly knows where to go from here, but there are a couple of men in this room that have been in AA with Tom almost from the day he began. One of them is sitting down there at the end of the table by the name of Bob McGarvey. Bob, would you come up here and say a few words?
Well, thank you, Doc. I can probably talk from here, can't I?
No. If you want an answer, the answer is no.
Say I need a microphone?
Yeah.
You're being taped, McGarvey. Be careful what you say.
I need a microphone sometimes when I'm talking to my grandchildren here. You know, I think, Doc, you got mixed up and, well, am I supposed to be? I don't need you. I get over here in the corner. But I'm talking, when you were talking about 12 and Mike, you were probably adding up Tom's grandchildren.
That's
You
right.
got 7 and Warren had 5.
No, I qualified it.
Oh,
I
you
said
did?
between the 4th.
Of course, I only got 5 of those grandchildren. But I got another 3, another set. So I got 8, huh?
Make me an offer, I'll trade you a couple.
I'll go with that, too. Well, we've known Tom for many, many years, and practically known him since the start. I think I knew Tom about 6 months after he got in AA, and of course, known him ever since. We've become very good friends over the years, and I think, in one respect, that Warren should be very happy that I did know his father and mother, because that's the only reason he got connected with my daughter.
I appreciate it.
So we used to go boating together, and used to go out on a boat, Tom and Zita and a lot of people. And I know of Warren, he got a speedboat, and he was speeding around there, and Nancy was kind of young in those days. She'd go with us, go with the family. So they got acquainted. So it wasn't too long before they were not only skiing together, but dancing together, and then they got married and got 5 kiddies. So I will say this, that I'm very happy, too, that we got such a wonderful family, and they sure produce wonderful kids, I'll say that. I have a lot of fun with them. I don't know, Mike, your kids so well, but I know a lot of them. Anyway, I've enjoyed the friendship all these years, and we've kept it pretty close, you see, because I always call Tom my father-in-law. But And Warren is too, well, we're only a few years apart. See, I'm a couple years older than Warren. So it's pretty hard for me to be his father-in-law, so I call Tom. Anyway, I'm happy to be here at this occasion. 25th anniversary. My God, that's something. And congratulations again, Tom.
Okay, well, thank you.
You know, in the last few days, there's been stories about grizzly bears out in Yellowstone Park. And we have a man here that had an experience with a grizzly bear. Probably a little bit off the subject, not of the format, but it might be sort of a little bit of a change. I'm going to ask Fred McBride to tell about his experience with a grizzly bear.
Okay, you mean that picture I took?
The time you had to run from it.
Oh.
Come on over here.
Well, this is very, very unexpected. There's a lot of fellows here that are senior to me. However, I appreciate it very much. Tom, it was 10 years ago on the 12th that I first met you in company with Jim Rerat and Claude and our good departed Joe Baker. I'll never forget that night as long as I live. I tried to do most of the talking that night, tell them I was in the wrong place, but Tom's done all the talking since then, and I think it's taken. Well, on this grizzly bear deal, we were out in Yellowstone, this was quite a number of years ago. We just pulled in there the first evening. And so while everybody else was working, I went out to take a little stroll, and during the course of my walking, I happened to look around, and geez, there was a bear coming along behind me.
You still drinking at the time?
I was drinking. Yeah. That's why I went out for the walk. But anyway, to make a long story short, I was trying to keep about 3 steps ahead of that bear. And finally got back to where we were staying, and I practically went right through the screen door. And, yeah, and I got in there, and the bear went on down the street, and come to find out, he'd broken into somebody else's place, and they were chasing him. But it's a wonderful occasion, Tom. This is, I was at your 20th, and now your 25th, and I hope I can be at your 50th. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Fred. Tom also has had many other associations other than AA associations, I'm sure. We have 2 people here tonight that represent that group that are not in AA, I know are interested in AA, know the value of it. One of them is Harry Green, right up my left here. I'd like to have Harry say a few words, if he would.
Talking about grizzly bears, I was not due back in Minneapolis until tomorrow. We had took our family vacation to the Canadian Rockies up at Lake Louise and Banff. And we hiked every trail we could find. We were hiking every single day, and it wasn't until yesterday we discovered we might have been meeting a grizzly bear up in that area. I never thought of it at the time. I came back, in fact I landed in Minneapolis at 4:30 this afternoon, because in calling the office last week they told me they were going to have a testimonial dinner for Tom. I've known Tom for well over 30 years. If you pardon my saying so, Tom, I've known you when you were down, and I've had the tremendous and distinct pleasure of knowing you when you were up. Tom is a very unique man. In all the years I've known Tom, I wonder if you've ever given thought to one particular quality this man has. It's a unique quality. Have you ever heard Tom ever say anything unkind about anyone? I never have. I've seen Tom when an argument arose and someone referred to somebody else as a so-and-so, and Tom will quietly and softly walk away. Here's a man in my book who really loves people. And in loving people, he's engendered the same love and respect for him. Tom, you're a very, very unique man. You're a wonderful man, and as Tom often says, I'll be your second father, and he has been. I'm a few years younger than Tom. And when Tom had a serious surgery, knowing fully well that visitors were not allowed, I sneaked up to the hospital to see Tom, as much as I would have done for my own father. Because in all the years I've known Tom, Tom has contributed one quality that I'll never forget, and that is that you speak no evil of anyone. And Tom has lived under those precepts. Tom, I'm very, very grateful, and I'm very happy to have had the privilege and the pleasure of being here tonight on your 25th anniversary. As far as I'm concerned, you're one of the grandest men I've ever known, a name I'll always revere and have a tremendous love and feeling for. You know, while out in the park, I saw a rather large, florid Irishman drinking a few tables away from us. When the party broke up, I'll never forget the remark he made, Tom, was very apropos. In a loud voice you could hear across the whole patio there, he says, hell, he says, there's only two kinds of people. He says, Irishmen and those who want to be. Tom, he could have been talking about you. Congratulations, Tom.
We have, too, a member of the judiciary with us here. And this wouldn't be a trial without a judge. I'd like to have Judge Kane come up here and speak a few words, if you would.
Tom, I'm very proud and happy to be part of this occasion. I suppose that I'm one of the few people in this room who actually have been both drunk and sober with Tom Burke. The second is better, Tom, believe me. And I'm sure you'll agree. It's hard to find anything to say about Tom. I've known him, boy and man almost, for nudging 30 years, 35 years rather. And he has been, in the latter years, a source of great inspiration to me personally, as he has been to so many people, both alcoholics and non-alcoholics. Luther Youngdahl used to have a description of a kind of person that he really liked. And I think that even in a stag gathering like this, it's not inappropriate to quote a woman poet, Emily Dickinson, who said, "If I can stay one heart the aching, or ease one pain, if I can lift one fainting robin unto its nest again, I shall not live in vain." And I think the nicest thing that I know about Tom Burke, that he has been doing this type of thing during almost all of the years that I've known him. And he surely has not lived in vain.
There's another man in this room that's had almost 25 years of constant association with Tom. 24 years, as a matter of fact. I'd like him to say a word. That's Jim Rearet.
Well, Thomas, I want to first congratulate you for your 25 years of sobriety and also all the whole group of us as a whole. Tom, in my book, has been my sponsor over the years, and I think he has done more to help me to keep my sobriety. Whenever I had problems, I could always go to Tom, And one thing about Tom Burke, he never gave up on any man or woman that had a problem. In other words, he'd always have faith in them and hope. And as one of the men said, he has never at any time ever gave up on anyone. I've never heard Tom speak unkind about anyone. He always used to say to my brother Don and myself, we'd take Tom home, and he'd say, now, the main thing is you gotta quit drinking. And Tom Burke, to me, has been a living example, and I have tried to follow his precepts and his way of life over the years, and I'm trotting behind Tom. I'm not doing too good of a job, but at least Tom says it's not a bad job. But Tom, I want to congratulate you and thank you again for all the kindness you have shown me over the years and all the help you have given to hundreds and hundreds of people. In my book, Tom Burke is Mr. AA. Thank you, Tom.
We do have some St. Paul people here also. And we've, I think, buried our enmities with St. Paul in many ways. Baseball, football, Metropolitan Sewage Commission, very Gaelic. But Mr. Van Every's here. I wonder if he'd say a word.
Congratulations, Tom. It's about 1964, I believe, that I became acquainted with him through the Gaelic Society in Minneapolis. Actually, my associations since then have been of the highest quality. Tom does always seem to be there, ready to answer a question, come to think of it. The things that I've heard here tonight, believe me, I've taken 2 or 3 notes on them. And you don't get to remember them until somebody else mentions them. And Tom has been an inspiration, I know, to the Minneapolis group. And believe me, it's streaking across the river into St. Paul. For St. Paul, Dr. Scanlon and Mr. Butler both had planned to be here, and I know they're going to miss it. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. We got another man in our group tonight. I don't care whether he talks about Burke or not, but we'd like to hear something about the twins. John Thomas is here. I think he's the greatest baseball expert.
Well, congratulations, Tom. And I could give Tom's pitch on making calls. I made about 1,000 with him, I think. I came in there and he had me every day. Grabbed me by the arm, let's go, we're going to talk to somebody. And he's always been the best and help everybody at all times. And he surely was an inspiration to me when I first went in there, and has been ever since. Keep it up, Tom.
With various people that are associated, I'm thinking of one man here that I know Tom loves, that I've come to love. He came into AA about the same time I did. Done a remarkable job. Always speaks well, always thoughtfully well, I should say. Came in about halfway through Tom's career. I think Tom had something to do and an influence on this man. I'm going to ask Wayne Lewis to come up here and say a word. You will, Wayne?
Well, gentlemen, this is quite a surprise to me. When I think back over the years, Tom and the group as a whole has meant, I think, life itself to me. I know every Friday of late years, I look forwards to the meeting, seeing the old men, and getting reassurance from what Tom has to say. Believe me, he's been a great help to me over the years. Thank you.
Another man about that time. We don't see too much of him anymore, but he gets around on special occasions. Where's Jim Whalen?
He's got enough kids to match both of those.
Shall we talk about that, or shall we talk about the Jim Rearath made a remark when he was up here. He said, Tom never quit on a man. And I can attest to that. He didn't quit on me, and I mean this real sincerely. When I'd quit on myself, I just about had it. You remember, Tom, I was slipping. Hell, I must have established an all-time record for 22:18, and just couldn't understand why this thing wasn't working out. Tom used to ask me for a ride home. It was he got up there fine, and why he wanted me to. I never figured that out at the time. But I'd drive him home, and we'd sit in front of his house and talk for anywhere from a half an hour to 3.5 hours. And I used to drive home wondering to myself, what is the matter with that man? At that meeting, he talks so sensibly. The things he says are well put together, they make sense. And still he sits in his car and he keeps patting me in the back and he said, hell, you can't miss your young, healthy, virile. Fella, and you can't, yeah, a little different there. You can't miss. You can't miss. And I thought, and with that I eventually go home and I think, I can't miss. He keeps saying I can't miss. And all I'm doing is missing, just week after week. But by golly, you know, we finally split 17 up, and I was torn between going with my sponsor or staying in 17, and I didn't mind leaving 17, except I didn't know if I wanted to leave Tom Burke, and I made it real clear that this was bothering me. Oh, buddy Charlie Skinner. Tom, I tell you, I appreciate what you've done. For me personally, I know you've done it to a lot of men. I thank you. Thank you.
There's one other man here that also has not been in AA with Tom, but he's been associated with Tom for a long, long time. Comes from the north side. And you know, we old north side are something like the Irishmen. You come from the north side, or you would have liked to have come from the north side. But this man has also been in business with Tom, and I know he's got something to say. I know he has a high regard, but I'd like to call on Roy Miller. Is he well?
Well, I think most of us at one time or another probably wonder why we got into the line of business that we're in, because we see maybe more verdant fields on another side, or the profession that we entered into. And I presume that the great majority of us have nobody to blame but ourselves. But I have a little unique position in that regard. I can blame it on Tom Burke. I went to Tom Burke when I wanted to get my first job, and he represented to me the man in the most glamorous business that there was. And Tom wrote letters of introduction for me to the various film managers, and he sealed them. Now, I never knew why he sealed them, and when I wound up with a position with one of the film companies, it was as a biller at $17.50 a week. But it was a start, and ever since then, while I was growing up in this business, Tom was a father confessor for me. I went to him with all my problems, and I always received very sound advice from him. Tom, to me, has been amazing in more than one respect. I think he's an amazing physical specimen. I've played golf with him all through the last years, and he never asked a quarter in walking on 18 holes of the golf course. He kept up with all the younger men, but more than that, he's amazing in his mental faculties. Tom has never lost youth, in my opinion, and in the business that we're in, that is a great attribute, because when you lose the outlook of youth, you're probably losing the thing that's going to make the success out of a picture at the theater. Tom, I want to thank you for everything that you did for me and bringing me up in this business. I've certainly enjoyed your companionship, your family, and I want to congratulate you on this occasion tonight.
I know everybody in this room would like to say something about Tom, but it's obviously impossible to get around to everybody. But I am going to call on one of the younger men in AA, one of the later men, should I put it, because it kind of demonstrates what happens down through the years. This man has been with us about a year. Again, seems to be doing an excellent job, seems to have accepted the philosophy, and I'm sure Tom has had a great deal to do with it. I'd like to have Ken Peterson come up here. He's one of the latest.
Well, this is a surprise. I feel like a Boy Scout in a GAR home. All these years piled up here. But Tom, I certainly want to thank you.
Thank you,
For this last year, plus a month, plus a few days, hours, minutes, and seconds. And the last time somebody said duck, I got hit right in the eye with a shot glass. So the circumstances have changed somewhat. It's been a little over a year now since I was associated with Tom. And I was dragged kicking, screaming, and hollering into the downtown club. And Tom took me aside. And of course, I didn't have a problem at that time. And he took me aside and he told me that he was an alcoholic. And I looked at this gentleman sitting there without a hair out of place, the demeanor of a fine gentleman, a suit that probably should be on the finest model in the country. And I looked at him and said, well, gee, if this fellow's an alcoholic, I better sober up so I can keep him sober. And I certainly want to thank him for one of the finest years I've put in quite some time, as far as peace of mind is concerned, and also, along with sobriety, of course, many other things are rewarding too. And Tom, it's a great pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you, Ken. I'd like to call on other people, but as I say, it's impossible to call on everybody here. I think Gene Troll may have a little message at this time from all of us to Tom.
Thank you, Jim.
It's you.
So Tom, it's nice as your chauffeur, private chauffeur, to be up here tonight. There's so many, many things that I would like to say about this gentleman. Tom and I have been quite close over the years. I've learned to love Tom very much, and he always kind of kids me about being his son, and Tom is very complimentary. I appreciate that. You know, I think there's usually in most people an outstanding certain characteristic that stands out in a person more than any other. I'm going to tell a little story that I think is very appropriate, directing this at Tom, of course. It's the story of the salesman who was in New York City over a weekend. He was a good church-going man, happened to be of the Episcopal faith. Sunday morning he came down to the lobby of the hotel. He ran up to the doorman and he said, "Get me a cab, I want to go to church." The doorman hailed a cab, and here Mike Dugan, the cab driver, owned his own cab, a good dyed-in-the-wool Catholic Irishman from the old sod, pulled up. Got the passenger in his cab. The passenger said, "Driver, take me to Christ Church." And Mike had a big smile on his face and put the car in gear, and down the street he went and made a few quick turns and pulled up in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral. The passenger looked out and he was very disgruntled. It wasn't the church he wanted to go to. He said, "Driver, what in the world's the matter with you? I told you to take me to Christ Church, and here you take me to St. Patrick's Cathedral. What's the matter with you? Don't you know this town?" Mike had a very disgusted look on his face, and he turned around to the fellow and he said, "Mister, if he's in town, you'll find him in there." Well, the virtue I think that always has stood out to me as far as our good friend Tom is this very deep-seated faith that he had. I don't think there's anybody in this room or anybody in the Twin Cities who has known Tom who has ever met Tom when he wasn't enthusiastic, happy, everything's fine, I don't care what happened, great, everything's fine. How do you feel, Tom? Great, let's go someplace, I'm ready. And I'm convinced, and I'm not a theologian, Father Brink's going to pick me up on this one, I know, but I know this much. Anytime a fella can be as happy as Tom Burke is, genuinely happy, there's no put on, he is a happy man. Anytime he's that happy that often, there's got to be a real deep, abiding faith in that fellow. I'm sure this, to me, this has marked Tom all through my life. No matter what happens, no matter what befalls him, whatever thing that occurs. With this great faith that Tom has in his personal God, he knows very well nothing can harm him, nothing can hurt him. He's right on top of the world all the time. And I know when I first came into AA a number of years ago through my good friend Bill Montroy, I got to know Tom quickly. This is a thing that attracted me. This was a man who was a very happy man, very serene, very good man. And I wanted to be like that. So I attached myself to Tom, and it's paid off. I know how many in this room who've ever made a 12-step call with Tom, who have been in a group meeting with him. This remark has to be made. Tom will be sitting there listening to some rigged tale by some alcoholic who knows all the angles, he's shooting all four corners, rationalizing about everything. Tom apparently is taking it all in very sincerely. When he gets all through, what does Tom say? Don't drink. He said, if I heard that once, I've heard it 1,000 times, and of course it's as simple as that. But Tom, we have a little token here for you tonight. You're the impeccable man. In addition to being such a fine gentleman, your attire is always beyond reproach. And I want to present this little token to you tonight on behalf of all of your good friends present here, and God bless you.
Before I call on the next speaker, of course, I want to pay my own personal respects to Tom. Been some over 12 years now. The thing that Harry Green mentioned, I noted, and keep noting. I had been in AA before I came up to this group. It was a very small group with Tom in it. I didn't know Tom before that time. But I was impressed with something. I think from the first time I saw him, I've said this before, he radiated something that I wanted. I couldn't define it quite at the time, but it came to mean calmness, it came to mean equanimity, it came to mean peace of mind. And Tom, in some way or another, communicated this to me, not through words, but just through his person, just observing him. These qualities were genuine, They're deep-seated. I've seen Tom through a couple of crises, and the same quality persisted all the way through. A rather unusual thing happened with the last one. We were down in Florida, and we'd heard that Tom had been in the hospital and had a serious operation. And I'm trying to get in contact with the telephone, so I thought I'd call the hospital. I knew he was in St. Mary's. And I called St. Mary's and asked for Warren. This was the day Tom was operated, mind you. Well, there was a little confusion up the switchboard at St. Mary's. And pretty soon somebody said, hello? Here it was Tom. They put the call through right to to his room. I guess it was in intensive care, but he answered the telephone and said, how are you? I'm fine. But this was something that came to me, and I think a measure of which I acquired simply through the association and through the communication of a personality. Now this year is another anniversary year for Tom. A few more weeks he's going to celebrate his 50th wedding anniversary. I had in mind getting all the wives up here so they could hear this tale, but I got voted down. I don't think the men wanted to hear about the first 25 years. Much better to hear about this last 25 years. And that's something that can apply to all of us. John Harrigan said to me tonight, someday I want to get your story. I hear it's a good one. Well, the day that we revert back to the old-fashioned AA and a man qualifies himself by telling his story, I'm going to tell it some night, John. I hope you're there. It extends over quite a little time. But tonight, I know Tom wants to say a word, not only for himself, but for Zita. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Tom right now and ask him to say a word to all of us.
Well, this is quite a shindig. And you consider that it is only perpetrated to honor a man for bailing out from what we call an affliction. Say there are lots of afflictions. Flat feet are afflictions. You can't do much about them. This is much easier, I think, in retrospect, inflection at least. Much easier to handle because it's you're keeping score on yourself. This is what I have tried to do. I certainly appreciate the comments from all of you fellows, every one of whom I consider a very close personal friend. It doesn't take long before you establish that close friendship between two men with a common problem. And particularly if you don't forget that you had the problem and you're on the way to having it licked. And this I've tried to keep before me at all times so that I didn't get too puffed up with my performance. It's been a positive breeze for me. I'm looking around this room, I got a kind of a chuckle out of it. I stumbled into this room plain stone sober one day to attend a committee meeting in Rotary, and I think I told it to Jip and Roy, and I told it to Warren. He got a belt out of it, although he's not a Rotarian. I get into this meeting. It's what's called a fellowship meeting where that I was supposed to attend, and there were a few fellows celebrating their birthday at this particular, or being honored on their birthday within the given space of time, given week. This is what Rotary does. And so I've got to be there. I have 2 or 3 friends in there. And I'm late, just under the wire, Harry, and I get in. And I sit down, I look around, and there's a few fellows that I know. but about as many fellows as I would know at 1 o'clock in the morning at Washington and Nicollet. And I'm supposed to know a few Rotarians. But there were, the lunches passed around, and I get into it pretty deeply. And I find out that here I am, a Holy Roman Catholic, and I'm tangled up with a group of the Central Lutheran Church. This was the room. This is the last time I've been in the room. That isn't the reason. I'm not that narrow. But this is really something in reality. When you get a bunch of fellows that will spend the money, I think that's important. The time is probably not so important to do this for me. And I've had 2 or 3 occasions like it. This, of course, has to be tops for a lot of reasons. The 25 years, that's big. No question about it. I only have one remark to make in connection with that 25 years. I'm sorry I didn't start sooner. I would have more living to do. But as Jip has said, I don't dwell too much upon how much time I have left. I try to make every day count. Harry is a close associate of mine, and he knows that. We battle, but we forget about it when the doors close. And start another day the next morning. And I just have a feeling that things are going to be all right every day. You get an opportunity to do that, to feel that way rather. When you reflect upon how things were before, 25 years back. Harry even knew me then, and Roy did. I'm talking about these 2 men because they're in my business, and they're my close personal friends. And they know as much about AA as any of you fellas here because they listen to me. And I'm not trying to dry them up. Miller, you can't get them drunk anyway. I can't afford it. Harry, no. So I'm not working on them from that particular angle. I think sometimes I do a little reverse selling on myself, trying it out on someone else to see if it's working on them. And I think I get the right reaction from most fellows that I discuss it with. Not on the AA level, but on some sort of a level comparable to what we tell men, what I've tried to tell men. Start from here and go forward. Hold the line. This is the way I have talked to him through the years. Now you wonder why a fellow stays with it. I don't have any problem. I don't have whiskey at my house. Anybody comes in, if they're not too thirsty, we'll take care of them. But it doesn't bother me, so it's been a very simple matter for me. And I'm taking vows for something that was a very simple thing for me. Mike tells me about my preaching to him. This was essential for me. I don't know whether it's that easy for Mike or not, but it's always easy when you get it done. But it seemed very simple to me. So if I do talk to people that are not in Alcoholics Anonymous or not in the Catholic Society, I am not only talking about the affliction of alcoholism. I'm talking about other afflictions that a fellow may have that rule out happiness, which to me is very important. Roy and I talk about that a great deal, and you and I talk about it a great deal, particularly Roy and I at a certain level. What have you got? What do you got going for you? I mean, you're going to wind up sometime. You're not going to live forever. Although I'll tell you, there's days when I wish I could, because it's that good. But I'm not kidding myself, and I have no fear of it. It isn't because I'm such a brave guy or I'm such a hero, but let's face it, that 25 years that he's talking about, that Jip is talking about, if there was any of that kind of living to do, yeah, I did it. I'm not proud of it. I think it was quite a price to pay for what I learned. And I didn't learn it until I found out that when you quit drinking, there's a lot of things beside drink, that are enjoyable, and particularly when one is unfortunate or fortunate enough, as the case may be, to be so afflicted, as I said before, afflicted with whatever it is, addicted, the doctors call it. It's addiction. I'm a pretty wise guy in a lot of ways. I mean, way back, I'd been around. The heck, I made the best hotels and the best bars all over the country. I didn't think there was any such thing as an alcoholic, except the fellows that were down on Skid Row, where I'm living now, incidentally. I made it down there. That wasn't easy. But that's the truth. I thought that was the definition of an alcoholic, a fellow that didn't know how to put on his necktie and didn't know how to dress and didn't know how to order a drink. A fellow that didn't have anything going for him. I thought this was the fellow that had to be an alcoholic. He's drunk, he's a bum. That's what an alcoholic was in my book. And I got to tell this to a few fellows that haven't heard it. You know, I'm always embarrassed in talking to most of this group because, as Thomas said, he's heard the pitch 400,000 times, and I have probably made it. But I am not so original that I can dig up a new one for every case I run into. So I got to draw on what I've said before, and perhaps even then I'm quoting somebody that's years ahead of me. But I started in this pretty early. And so I do feel that it is this way with me. It was good to find out that I was one, don't you see? But what a devastating realization it was when I woke up in reflection. This was the toughest thing I had to contend with. How little I had done with my life. I haven't done much with it yet, but at least I've made a dent in it, don't you see? Because I stayed sober. Of course, this was the big play, to quit. And this is the way I talk all the time. To any of those pitches, Johnny, that we made years ago, quit drinking and then go from there. You don't have a chance otherwise, particularly if you are an alcoholic. And there's a stigma attached to that word alcoholic that I probably would have fought to my dying day accepting. I got some sort of an inspiration 25 years ago today, and believe it or not, it was in St. Bridget's Church on the north side. It was my father and mother's church, and I was pretty much, I'd say, pretty lost. I mean, I was wandering around pretty much by myself, but I did go to church that day, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning that 25 years ago today that I decided I was never going to take another drink. Now, the reason I know this was a decision that I made, whether it was divine intervention or not, I do not know. I'll give the good Lord credit for 99% of it. I'll take the 1% for my short end. But that's when it happened. This is where I got the inspiration or the idea. No matter what happened to me, and I was COD in spades. I mean, I would have settled for being broke. And everyone that knows me well knows that. I was desperate. I was destitute financially, in my book, morally, in my book, socially. So I shouldn't be taking boss for this, and you shouldn't wave flags for me. You shouldn't give these celebrations in recognition of this victory. Because, hell, I had no other choice. I had no other way to go. I'm like the guy, and I've said this many a time, you can duck out, Thomas. I was backed in a corner, and I had nothing to do, nothing else to do, but either come out fighting or go down. And that was, I believe, the turning point, not only from the standpoint of my liquor addiction, but for a great many other things. The support that I've gotten from every one of you fellows, every single guy that even listens to me is a big help for me. Today, even to this day, a man that is interested enough to listen to what I have to say. And Ken was up here. I'm awfully proud of you, Ken. I get a tremendous bell out of seeing a fellow bail out. Dwayne Lewis, who came up here. Bud Carroll, who hasn't said a word, and this is pretty unusual for Bud. You're going to make another meeting, huh? But I see you fellas just actually come out from under that rug. And boy, this puts years on my life. Harry's talking about, or somebody, Gene, or about that eternal youth and all that. Well, what the heck, you might as well live that way if you can. Of course, I'm very fortunate in having a fairly good constitution, despite the Ralph Branton, may his soul rest in peace, said he'd think I preserved it. Ken Peterson said one night at a meeting that alcohol would preserve anything excepting a man's character. I quote you on that without plagiarism, or it's all right, huh? Pretty good, isn't it? My character was preserved, I guess, some way or other, but there was a little of it left anyway. But to help with my friends, and this is a big thing, but it's more especially from my immediate family. I have to say this, as I've said to many of you individually. I've said it to Roy many a time, who's not an alcoholic, but a close friend. I've said it to Harry. My past never comes up unless I bring it up. And I'm not very proud of it, so I keep it kind of quiet. This is pretty well buried. So if I have an optimistic outlook on life, if I say I feel good, Gene, please believe me, because I mean it. I do feel well. And if I don't feel well, why, I'm too selfish to stay that way long. I pull out of it some way or other. But this is something you learn from coming out from under that rug that I'm talking about and finding that things are all right, living the other way. I think there's more than a lesson for alcoholics in the rehabilitation of an alcoholic. You've seen them all around you. It's a lesson in life and that any one of us can use. And I think most men do. Sound thinking men do. They use that lesson. Roy and I discussed that a great deal, and you and I do. What the heck, there's something else, that you got going for you. But in the particular case of an alcoholic, he thinks this is the only thing in the world that kept him down. And then he comes to, and he quits, and he's not drinking anymore, and his friends are speaking to him, and he maybe got his credit pretty fair. His bills are paid, or at least he knows when they're going to be paid, or at least his promise is a little better than it used to be. And there's an inclination to think, well, what the heck, it wasn't that bad. I got over it in too much of a hurry. And Harry, I have to tell you this because I don't think I ever did. When fellas talk to me about how rough it is when you finally come to and realize that you're a COD in spades, as you know I was and Roy does, and my son doesn't admit it, but I guess he thought we were rich because I bought him a $30 suit or something. But, but you know that the shape you're in, don't you see? And you think, well, the road back is too rough. Mike knows the story of this, too. You could think that way. But if you just reach the conclusion, feel about it. This is the big victory. And to think 20 or 30 fellows, some of them virtual strangers to me, just acquaintances during the past year, to turn out here and lay down there. I don't know what the price was, but not to see me, not to honor me, because as I said before, I'm taking bows for things that anybody with the brains that God gave me should have decided to do long ago, but I didn't do it. I was a hard guy to convince. Fortunately, thank the good Lord, it did come along, AA, a simple little plan. for a living, which did not include drinking or carousing, or being the big man, you know, at Sardi's or wherever you go. No, that was not important. It becomes less important as the years wear on. Just being what God intended you to be. Being a pretty square guy. This is no big thing for a guy to be honest. In fact, I think Phil's a damn fool that isn't honest, because he has to keep carbon copies of what he says in order to cover up. That's the material side, and on the personal side, it's great to be honest with yourself, at least with yourself, and try to be as honest as you can with the people around you, because you gain stature by it in the community, but more than that, you gain stature in your own estimation, which is pretty important to the average guy. Don't think that I don't appreciate this. I do. I'd be an ingrate if I didn't. But please don't declare a legal holiday. Don't get a stamp in my name or anything like that. Don't go any farther than this. I haven't even looked at this. And if it's a post-dated check, I'll tell you, I'll cancel my subscription to AA. But thanks so much for coming. I've enjoyed every bit of it, and I enjoy every man that's here, and I enjoy your progress and enjoyed your company. And all right, let's not date it that far away. Try to get in under the wire so that I don't know how long this is going to go on, fellas. I can't even make a guess. But don't sell me short, because I feel awful good today, Jim.
As you know, AA meetings are usually closed with the Lord's Prayer, but I'm going to take the privilege of changing that tonight and instead ask Father Rick to pronounce a benediction.
Almighty God, I ask your blessing on all the men who are here this evening, not only for those who are afflicted with the problem of alcohol, as maybe many are, but we being wise men, at least growing up to be wise in our age, realize that all men have afflictions. If we can learn nothing else than to live with them, and not deny them, not to run from them, not to hide from them, if we can learn to live with them, we will learn to live with you. Amen.
Thank you. Congratulations again, Thomas.
Congratulations, Tom. Congratulations, Tom, my boy. I think we had you a little surprised.
Yeah, you did. He had us nailed down for a ball game, you and me.
Congratulations. He's still a liar, Tom.
Yeah, but
Keep kissing those girls, too.
Everything he said.
How have you been? Fine, I just got back. Yeah, I know.